Meet Taylor. She slams her hands on the desk as she stares at the laptop and screams, "Are you kidding me?" There was another blocker, another missed deadline because a teammate didn't communicate. The frustration hits hard because it's not supposed to be like this. As a Scrum Master, Taylor thrives on collaboration, but lately her team has felt anything but collaborative. Developers drop the ball, product owners disappear, stakeholders don't communicate, and it's all piling up. Her husband hears her scream, runs over and asks, "Is everything okay?" Taylor sighs. Another blocker, another missed deadline. I'm doing my best to move things along, but they just don't listen. Her husband nods and says, "Look, sweetheart, you can't force them, but maybe you should consider changing your approach." Taylor freezes because she knows he's right. Taylor loves leading Agile teams, but lately her passion feels more like pressure. She's reactive, impatient, carrying the weight of every misstep. Collaboration is broken. Trust is lost. And no one is aligned. Not even her. Today, I'm speaking with Nisha Joshi. She is a top voice on LinkedIn and an expert in Agile delivery and business transformation. And Nisha works with leaders like Taylor to break down barriers, to align teams, and drive real collaboration. Nisha is an expert in creating cultures where communication flows, trust is built, and delivery is smooth. And I'm excited to hear how Nisha would advise someone like Taylor, because I've known Nisha for years and I know she's been there and she's figured out how to create cultures that are collaborative, where success happens organically, but you never forget the human element. My name is Jay Abbasi, and welcome to Unstuck. Real people, real stories, real solutions. While the details are changed to protect anonymity, what you just heard is based on a true story of challenges that come up in the real world. And we discuss how to navigate these environments with practical tips to help you get unstuck and build a more fulfilling, impactful, and balanced life and career. So, Nisha, we're going to get into Taylor's story later, but I want to start with your story. Of course, I've known you for many years, but I want you to tell me a little bit about your career journey and what got you interested in Agile business transformation. What was the moment? What was the moment where you realized this is something I'm passionate about?
This is, it's a really important story to me because I was first a project manager. And you know this, right, from our coaching sessions. But I will share that with your listeners. I was a project manager managing really high-scale projects and programs. They were complex. I was burnt out. So I have a lot in common with our friend Taylor in the story. And I made myself the hub. In those environments, I made myself that communication hub. Everybody come to mama, got a risk or got a problem. It was a come to mama story for me in my mind. I've got to sort something out. This is my responsibility. I took it very, very personally. I ended up burning out as a result of that. And that burnout looked like me saying, right, I'm going to sack everything in. I need a proper break from this job. I've ended up in A&E with a bad back too many times for sitting at the desk for too long and firefighting, or making myself the hub, as I said, and not delegating to people enough and not recognizing that was something I could do. There were clearly things now looking back that I needed to learn from my scenario, but I was thinking I need space away from this to do this. my sister and I were flipping houses as well in, private life outside of work. And so we'd made a bit of money, and I thought, right, this is the time for me to do a massive reset. I need to get my health back. I need to have a different mindset about how I'm approaching my work. And so I kicked it all off in Vegas in terms of a year out. I traveled, I hit everywhere on my bucket list. Now my bucket list is massive. But then there you go. Those are the perils of traveling. And then Vegas, Nepal, then I ended it all off in Thailand. That was my last trip that I made. Fantastic. But when I came back, obviously you need money to survive, right? And so I ended up in a contract role. So it's freelancing, again, dipping my toe in, testing myself, seeing what I've learned in my reflections whilst I've been away. Have I learned how to delegate? Am I still the center point person? What are my natural instincts? I was in a legal services company and I saw a Scrum Master work with his team. And I was invited as a project manager. They were going through an Agile transformation. And I was invited to do a lot of the stakeholder management with editorial teams, fabrication teams, because there was a lot of legal content we wanted to put out there in our products. And so I saw him build an amazing relationship with his stakeholders. I saw the team have a lot of respect for each other. I saw that they weren't rushing to meet the end of sprint releases. I saw that he was so calm on the day-to-day, and they had such a great relationship. And it really opened my eyes being part of that team, in the way I was welcomed, in the way that they explained the ins and outs of Scrum to me without expecting me to have gone on a course and understood it inside out. I was welcomed, and I saw another way of actually working. And it was working so well for them that I was like, okay, I need to make a change in how I'm working. I need to understand this a little bit more and see how I'm doing it. Enter a perfect example in the form of that Scrum Master for me to shadow, for me to observe, for me to understand how he's working on a day-to-day basis in a multi-dimensional way, and something that I hadn't grasped before I burnt out all those years ago. So yeah, that's my story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Before I ask you more about the story, of all those places you went, which was your favorite country that you visited?
I keep posting about it every year when the reminders, pop up on the iPhone. I've got to say Nepal. I loved Nepal. I loved the trekking, obviously. So I did the Annapurna Sanctuary. That was my absolute favorite. I didn't train for it. It's like pride of the youth, right? So I ended up with dodgy knees, trying to get Tiger Balm at tea stops and places like that to try and put some heat back into my joints so that things would move freely in the mornings. I didn't expect that, but yeah, it was just the people, the beauty of the landscape, the pushing yourself, the meditative sense that you get when you go for hikes. I know you like that kind of stuff as well.
Oh yeah. So I'm writing this down. Alex, if you're listening, Nepal is now on my list.
Good.
She knows my list. She doesn't like everything on my list because she's not as interested in certain places that I want to visit. She likes to keep it a little bit more local, but like you, my bucket list is pretty long, and I just added Nepal to it. Okay, so you were talking before about the thing that you saw in yourself that later you realized this was a problem, right? The come to mama kind of thing, right? Which is something that you had to work on yourself, like your own psychological cycle of I keep it all with me.
Yeah.
How did you work through that, Nisha?
Well, when I went through some sessions with a coach, and when you have time to really reflect and think about your background as well and how those beliefs actually formed. Like I was brought up in an Asian household. And kids in an Asian household, I'm stereotyping, but this was around the 80s and 90s. You're born to parents that immigrated to the UK. They're trying to make a life for you. But that means there's a whole load of responsibility that's handed down to you as well. And sometimes that responsibility is handed down to you earlier, sometimes a lot earlier than you're ready to shoulder, right? And so that those kind of patterns of, yeah, I will take it on. Yes, I'll. This is my responsibility. Those like patterns, the inner voice that then the recorder that then plays because you've had it already in your childhood, and those patterns that are formed were very similar to those patterns that kind of were behind that burnout. So it was unlearning that and understanding that in those environments, I was around people who were more than willing to help, right? If I looked back and thought about the characters that I was around, they were more than willing to step in. They were more than willing to help. And I got brave and tried to play with that a little in my life, and pull people together and understand how others could step in and take some of that load, get to that role clarity, give myself that space and that peace of mind. But the root of it, to answer your question, was for me to go back and to understand, hey, hang on, where did that habit seep in? And when did it seep in? And it's safe now to do that unlearning, right? So,
I love that you use the word safe there.
yeah.
Because that's what it's all about, isn't it? I can relate so much to what you just shared.
Yeah.
Middle Eastern family.
Right.
Growing up,
Right.
it was fix everybody, and solve everybody's problems. And whatever it is, I can do it. I can help.
Right.
And wanting to show your parents and others that you're good enough, right? That you can handle it. I can relate to that so much. And then it becomes something where it really is about feeling safe. Like that's really what happens. You're doing it as a young child because you think this is how you create that sense of safety, comfort within your own life. But as adults, we keep that pattern going and it's no longer necessary.
Right. Absolutely. And we can fall into that trap so readily.
Right.
And it's crazy how like you can just let that happen. I was lucky. If I look back now, as uncomfortable as that experience was for me, if I look back now and I think about how lucky and how fortunate I was to take that time out, to travel to all the wonderful places I wanted to experience, but also to come back home in between, to really understand myself, take that time out, work with a coach, take that responsibility and go, right, I've seen these things. They're not really doing me any favors. They're not working so well for me. And lo and behold, like it was, if I think about it, sorry to go woo-woo on you, but I'm going to.
Go ahead.
But it was almost like I'd done the work on myself. And then the universe was showing me a scene with that Scrum Master playing out exactly the type of lifestyle and professional outlook and ways of working that I wanted to have in my professional life. But I had to do that work in order to make myself available. Otherwise, I would have looked at that probably with skepticism and said, Scrum, Agile, I've worked all my life. It's very structured. It serves me well. I'm skeptical about this. Is this going to deliver me results? I don't know. But I was open enough to actually recognize the benefits that were being had and the value that was being delivered by that team.
To me that doesn't sound woo-woo at all. And if anybody listening thinks it's woo-woo, well, I would challenge you, because to me it's very clear that you built up this self-awareness within yourself of a pattern that no longer served you, which then opened your mind up to seeing different ways of behavior. And therefore, you were open to learning the way in which another person was handling a similar situation or a situation now where you're like, okay, I want to be doing something like that. I want to be able to apply these kinds of approaches. So when you then learned about how to collaborate and work with others, what are some of the things that you recognized are essential to be able to work or have a team work towards one aligned goal? What are the fundamentals, Nisha?
Oh, this is some of the stuff that I would be telling Taylor, because definitely. And when your listeners come across Taylor's scenario, they'll see this as well. And this is why I love Scrum so much, because it's so aligned to my values, my own values, my own very personal values. And so Scrum has some amazing values of commitment, focus, openness, respect, courage. And they can take a multitude of forms, but those are really the things that hold product teams together. So if they align on, what is commitment to you, Joe, versus what is commitment to me, Nisha, in our professional environment, how we're going to exchange information, how we're going to feel accountable towards each other, how I'm going to share information with you. So what does openness mean, right, in our environments? And to have that dialogue and to have that true collaboration is really what holds a team together. You have to be interested in each other to do that, and you have to be interested in the outcome that you're delivering to the business. So it's very much the foundation that holds all of this together is very much at a human level. It's very human-centric first. We're all trained in our technical skills, right? Developers are trained in the discipline of technical disciplines. We're trained in terms of the technicalities of methods, of frameworks like Scrum, like Kanban, measurements, techniques for stakeholder engagement, for example. But it is like, how can I build that rapport? How can I explain my values? How can they be explained back to me and we agree a way of moving forward? So those values, those 5 values I mentioned, are really at the core of Scrum in this instance, but they align so much with my own personal value system, that it was very easy for me to embrace.
And when we hear these things, it's like, yes, this is what is required. This is how we get teams to work together. What often gets lost, Nisha, is how. How does one really activate these values? So what are some of the things that you recognize are approaches, strategies, actionable ways in which that kind of culture gets created?
Are we going on to Taylor now, and in Taylor's context? Because this is,
it could absolutely. Let's rock and roll with Taylor's story.
Okay, because if we're going into Taylor's experience, she is at that stage where she is so frustrated. And my advice to Taylor would be to go back to the basics. She's a Scrum Master. So it's likely that she's either using Scrum, other lean methods like Kanban, etc. I would like her, if I was going to speak to Taylor right now, I would say, try to go back, bring those basics back. Because what Taylor is driving for at the moment is she has a lot of care in her. And you can tell that by the tone. She wants her team to do really well, but yet she's got those missed deadlines. She's got some confusion. She's got blockers that go unchecked, for example, and no one's doing anything about it. So she's got that caring, but it's without clarity. So what I would say is bring those basics back. So within the practice of Scrum, you have 3 main pillars. They talk about transparency, inspection and adaptation. And what's really important is to bring basic practices back. So you asked for the how.
Yeah.
Right? So you have practices like if the team that she's working with has an aversion to Scrum, I don't know, or it can happen, or they have, they're not used to it, or they have a lack of knowledge about it. Bring the basic empirical elements back that allow you to adapt to different circumstances, that allow you to change course, that allow you to understand, oh, we're gonna miss this deadline if we don't do this, or we've got these risks that are suddenly coming up. What are we going to do about them? And they are your daily, you've got events that you can have with your team, your daily scrums, your sprint reviews that engage the stakeholders, so that you can start thinking as a team, how far are we from the product goal that we're supposed to be reaching? Do we need to go out there, and do we need to adjust? Do we need to have more customer interviews? Do we need to do additional things? Do we need to bring the customer back into the loop so that we can assess whether what we're delivering is going to hit the spot for the customer or not? For example, the sprint retrospectives are another thing where these are, and you can start off with incredibly simple formats where you can have those sprint retrospectives where you get your team together and you can have there's so many different formats out there, Jay, from movie themes to animation themes to manga themes. There's so many different formats of a retrospective out there, all asking you as a team in a confidential space to talk about how you can bring improvements back into your performance. And she can start off really simply. And there's an exercise that's really great. It's called Heard, Not Heard. Okay. And with the type of team currently that she's working with, this is a really simple one that she can do. You prepare 2 columns, one heard, one not heard. And you ask the teams to reflect on the in the heard column, what phrases or concerns that they have, or truths that they hear regularly in the team. And in this one, they'll come out with, oh, we hear that this is blocked. We hear the stakeholders are not available. We hear that, we've missed the previous deadline. People aren't happy with us, example. What's not heard is the other column. And in that column, she can ask people to put, okay, well, what are the things that get silenced or dismissed or not talked about? What do we deem as too risky, perhaps, to say, right? And you can do this if you're remote. You can do this on a Jamboard. Jamboard doesn't exist anymore. You can do this on a Miro, a mural. You can do this on Teams. In terms of the whiteboarding facility, there's so much that you can do. My advice to Taylor would be, you're not there to rescue the team, but what you're there to do is use all these little tools and constructs that you have, recognize the purpose of them, and use them in such a way that will help the system expose itself. Right?
I love it. Well, I think that's an amazing exercise, the heard, not heard exercise. I've never heard that before. I've never heard that before. All right. But it's so smart because it creates engagement.
Yeah.
And it allows for the group to diagnose versus trying to be in that chair of I diagnose everything and I'm the one putting out all fires.
Right.
I want to get your take on this. What would you say to someone, Taylor or anyone else? What would you say to them if they told you, Nisha, that all sounds great, but we just don't have the time to do all of that? What would you say to them?
Oh, mate, what are you waiting for? Is what I would say, because what is the cost of not getting your team together and having an impromptu session where you can talk your feelings out, where you can really talk your frustrations out, where Taylor can put herself in that position of just listening. She doesn't need to say too much as a facilitator, but she needs to open the floor to her team and maybe involve a couple of her stakeholders. The price of it, I would ask Taylor to say, by saying that you do not have time, right? So by saying you do not have time, what are you actually denying yourself? That's what I would ask her. So if you're denying yourself the ability to deliver value for your next sprint, if you're denying yourself the ability to really articulate where your problems are so people can help you, if you're denying your ability to prove your own value, because right now within the Agile industry, if you're an Agile coach, if you're a Scrum Master, you know this from the sessions that you and I used to have, where I used to say to you, Jay, I need to be able to quantify the value I'm bringing to these businesses. That's really important.
Yeah.
And part of that value is revealing what's blocking you in that system. So what is that dysfunction? And then opening that up to the team. So there is so much value in opening up a pocket of time where the team can do this for themselves. What does it need? An hour right now? Just to look at the most prominent problems and bring them out with heard, not heard, and then follow it up with maybe 15. There's another exercise, 15% solutions, for example. That allows you to mobilize your own agency where you feel stuck. So a developer might be having a problem. They can't get hold of a stakeholder. Something might be going on in her environment, right? And that's when you bring the agency back to the team. What's 15%? What is the thing that I can do that's within my power to do? And really have them ruminate on that. So don't wait for conditions then to be perfect, but ask yourself, okay, so what are those 15? What's that 15%? What's that really small action I can do to try and move something forward? Yeah. Might mean it comes back on Taylor to resolve a blocker, but it may also mean the developer or product owner have to sit and work together to figure something out.
The question around what is the price of this, what is the cost of this, is such a powerful one. What also comes up is, yes, of course, the business results, the team results, but even what you were saying in your own story for Taylor, it's like, what is the price of your own mental health and your well-being here?
Right. Yeah. And you're so right in that. Like, it's like that pattern in yourself. So she can sprint after sprint after sprint. She can throw her hands up in frustration every single sprint, but does she really want that? And there's that internal pattern that she's actually developing there. So yeah, that's one of the costs, right?
Yeah. Well, I was just right before we hopped on this call, I was working with a client now who he's in a process of making a transition, and he was saying how early in his career, he would work 16-hour days and he loved it and it was great. It wasn't a bad thing. Right. But this was before he had a family, before he had all these other things. And now, as he's in this process of transition, he doesn't want to do that. And he wants to create a more balanced lifestyle where he does want to work, but he wants to be able to have that time with his loved ones. Mm-hmm. And so he needs to be mindful of working with a startup versus, a more of a kind of established corporate role. But what we got to in the end was, you start with the lifestyle. Yeah. Like, you don't start with the job. This is what people do, right? We start with, I could do that job. I could do that job. Oh, it sounds like fun. I want to work there or there, whatever. But what you said it, what do you want? First, know what you want, and then be able to decide on the kind of position, whether that's a contract role, it's a corporate role, or if it's starting a business of your own.
Right. I think that is really powerful as well. In Taylor's case, like, if you just put yourself, like, even reading those words when you sent me through this story, it builds up a sense of anxiety. Yeah. You, right? And in the way that the story is told, in the way that then suddenly she can't see it because her partner is coming to Taylor in the story and saying to Taylor, hey, you know what, honey, I think you need to change your approach here.
Yeah. Right.
And that is a lot when a family member can see you going through this day in, day out. Hey, you know, I've lived with my sister for the longest time. And during those times when I used to put myself in this perpetual cycle of the continued anxiety, the everything on my shoulders type of mindset, right?
Mm-hmm.
When your family can see it and you choose not to do something about it, that is in fact, it's going to impact your lifestyle.
Yeah. There's no better signal than
Yeah.
the one from a loved one who says, hey, this is not sustainable.
Yeah.
Whenever somebody comes to me, Nisha, and they said, you know, my husband said this, my wife said that, my brother said this, my mother said this, whatever, I say, wait, this is something you really do need to address, and you need to address it yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, this is not like if someone sees a loved one sees you like that, listen, do not ignore that. Do not deny that. Don't say it's a get to it eventually. It needs to become a priority. And with Taylor's story, I think that one of the things that she's really looking to be able to establish is trust amongst her team. And I know you talk about trust a lot and
Mm.
how we gain trust of others. So if someone feels like I can't get people really bought in and they realize that there's some trust that needs to be established, how do you recommend they go about it?
First step is to make things discussable. And it's to, one thing I've done with teams and team members that I've had where I felt that trust really needs to come to the fore, that we really need to establish that relationship is in trust, is first of all, talk about it. So if she's feeling like, you know, if she's feeling like either let down or some members of her team are feeling let down, they need to be brought to a comfortable psychological safe space where they can talk about that level of trust, where they can talk about what would it take for me to feel safe in this environment? What would it feel for me to feel like I'm contributing and I'm also supported by that team? How are we going to unlock that level of trust together? And what can we do to make it solid? So when the pressure's on, how are we going to keep that rapport strong? And part of that conversation is also how are we going to hold each other accountable? How are we going to give each other honest feedback? How are we going to make sure that we don't have bad feelings if we disagree about something? We can still walk away without hurt feelings and still walk away with, right, that's fine. My idea is not accepted in this instance, but it's going to be good for what we're delivering, right?
Yeah.
So it's to create, first of all, that environment. And like I said, it can be done with such simple ways. The retrospective is a great way that Taylor can start opening that. Now, it might mean that she needs to bring the tension into that team to start off with and don't shield them from it. So it might mean that like she has to open up a discussion to say, look, I'm noticing these patterns. I don't want to make assumptions. Can we make this discussable?
That
Right?
takes courage.
Yeah. But this is why Taylor needs to get back to the basics.
Yeah.
This is why, you know, and if it brings up anxiety,
I'm sure it would. Yeah.
as it would in me, if I was, you know, I've developed these skills in order to be able to do this over time. Gosh, no one starts off as a Scrum Master. Scrum Master is a really damn difficult job. Jay, no one starts off in that world knowing everything. You learn by doing, You learn
Yeah.
by making mistakes. You learn by falling flat on your face sometimes with
Sure.
the things that you say or the things that you do. A lot of that role is that knowing when to ask these questions, to get people to open up. And it might mean that before she brings that tension into that team, she invites them out for lunch if they're all co-located, or they do something really simple on a Friday afternoon and they have half an hour in the diary where they don't talk about work. They just talk about what they're going to do over the weekend. It's not a rule. It's a rule not to talk about work, just to get them all warmed up to each other and
Yeah.
interested in each other as human beings.
Yeah.
Then when you follow it up with, hey, these are some of the patterns I'm noticing, then it's not such a hard thing. It's people will be warmed up to having some sort of a dialogue about it. I think that would be a sensible first step for her.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you the story about the first person I met who told me about Agile? Did I ever tell you that story?
No, tell me. I want
Okay,
to.
so this was years ago, before it was as well known as it
Mhm.
is now. And it was someone that I was working with at a consulting level, and he was explaining Agile to me, and I was like, "Oh, this sounds great." He was struggling though within the company.
Mm.
And so people were telling me how he was hard to work with. And even as he was describing Agile to me, he was doing it in a way that was so mechanical. It was it was so like not human.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't too long after that where he did get let go, and
Mm.
this person left the company. I don't know what he's done since, but he was the first person who introduced me to it. But what's interesting is, as I'm hearing you talk about it, you're coming from such a human centered
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
And he was not. He was coming from a very like, this is how it goes. And you go from this stage to this stage, and then you do this. And it sounded like it was I don't know, like it sounded like it was just this machine that runs and it has certain ports within the machine. Like that's what it sounded like to me.
Oh man.
And it really is, it brings to light that no matter what it is that we're talking about
Mm.
within the professional environment,
Mm.
we always have to start with the fact that people are people. Humans are humans, and you need to meet them at their human level before you introduce anything else.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And with the advent of AI, those skills are going to be needed more and more and more, because AI can give you the technical know how, right? AI, and if you're smart and you have that savvy, you can pick these skills up. Like you said before, we were both talking about more good at, right? And the fact that you were telling me, he said, well, if you're not using it in order to increase your productivity or gain some efficiencies as part of your day-to-day role or work, then you're going to be so behind. So you and I are both using it. We're
Yeah.
both using it. I use it for my podcasts, right? Because if I didn't, Jay, like you, we record in advance. I can't remember every damn talking topic. I can't do that. So I use it, right?
Yeah.
But this is the thing. What is going to differentiate you? Everyone's going to be on a level playing field. You're going to have your technical skills. Hopefully, you'll have great coaching skills. But those human dynamics and that lovely quality that you can have and you can develop within yourself to build a human centric approach, and how you can work on yourself in order to do that, is a very inside out job. And that no AI is going to come and help you do that, right? That's going to
Right.
be your differentiator.
It's I like the way you said it. 11. I just imagined like thousands of chat GPTs all
Right.
just talking to each other. Like that's what's going to happen if we rely too much on AI and we don't go through that process that you just described.
Mm.
And even before we were recording, we were talking about this,
Yeah.
and you were saying how AI has actually helped you to be able to recognize your own unique positions, because you'll see what AI comes with, right? And then you'll be able to say, wait, no, I wouldn't say it that way, or I would put it that way, or I would be able to add my own spin to it. And it actually has helped you to create your unique voice.
Yeah. And this is where, from your coaching sessions with me, I remember you saying to me, you'd ask me some questions, and sometimes I'd give you some frothy answers. You might not remember this, but I bloody do. And you'd say things like, go deeper, Nisha, go deeper. What is actually literally what's under that iceberg for you, right? Like, I remember your voice in that. And so when I put prompts in, maybe I'm not prompting well enough, I don't know, I've got to figure that piece out, right? But when I am prompting ChatGPT and I see what comes out, straight away you've got that frothiness, that very surface level stuff. You've got the stock phrases, you've got the common language patterns that it's building up, and you're like, it's just not getting deep enough for me. I can take a few things from there. So yeah, I can feed it all the transcripts in the world for our Delivery Space podcast episodes and say, hey, give me all the talking points, right? But that essence of how I felt when I had the podcast session, I recorded it with Jay, or I had a solo session with Sharon, and we interviewed each other, for example, on how I felt about it. I'm the only person that can help communicate that on a LinkedIn post to people. And I've got to develop my own vocabulary to make sure that I can convey that, right? So it's that, I guess it's that depth of expression that at the moment ChatGPT is not giving me. But as I said, maybe I'm prompting it wrong. I don't know.
I don't know either, because it's just for me, it's just messy action. Like, I just try this, I try that, I see what works. I've asked those same questions that I asked you to ChatGPT. I said go deeper, and it didn't always work. Like, it would just maybe just say it a little bit differently. We're all learning as we go, and I do think, right, what you said is accurate. Where yes, incorporate it. Yes, bring it into your life. Yes, use it. It's just know what it's actually for. It's not meant to be another version of you. It's meant to help you to be able to do more in less time, yes, and even give you some additional perspectives to help you to do your own introspective work. It's actually a tool that way. It can even be a bit of a coach for you, but it's not going to replace your humanity. And so one of the questions I always want to bring up to our guests towards the end of a conversation is related to if you had a chance to meet Taylor. So let's say she listens to this episode and she says, you know what? I got to talk to Nisha. I got to be able to find out a little bit more. And she reaches out to you on LinkedIn and you set up some time to meet with her. She tells you her story. She tells you what she's going through. And rather than jumping into the advice that you'd give her, you may want to prompt a question into her mind to evoke some of those answers, Nisha. What would you ask her first?
One of the first things I would ask her is, what voices are shaping your decisions? And which ones are shaping your silence?
Ooh. Tell me more about this. That was powerful. Tell me more.
Because looking at and reading and absorbing that story that you sent me, there are times when, and there are clues in that story where, and I'm going to read directly from it, where she's sighing and she goes, same old, more blockers, more missed deadlines. I try to keep things moving, but they don't listen. But what she's doing is that she's doing the same old. And so there is that silence there where she's not really saying or encouraging what needs to be said. So there is some sort of inner dialogue that's playing within Taylor, and that's perpetuating this cycle. And because she's in that role of Scrum Master, and Scrum Masters, are accountable for delivering value into that business, right? The business is there to make money, and that's how she's going to improve her value. So that's one of the first questions I would ask Taylor. What are those voices within that are shaping your decisions, and which ones are shaping your silence? Because she's not confronting them, and we're not saying direct confrontation, but she's not invoking that collaboration aspect and using that to take the heat off her, but to reveal the system. And once you've revealed the system, and you can all see it in front of you as a team, then they're like, right, okay, we can be a little bit less emotionally involved. We can see it for what it is. Now what are we going to do about it? And then you see the difference in dialogue. You see the uplift of the stress, like it's almost like it's gone, because you're all at it together then. So that's what I'd ask her.
I love it. I love that question. That's so powerful. Nisha, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to connect with me. And for anyone listening, the best way to find Nisha, you're on LinkedIn. You're very active on there.
Yes.
Nisha, is it Joshi, by the way, or Joshi? I never even asked you.
Second one's correct, Joshi. Yes.
Joshi. Okay.
Yes.
I had no idea. Joshi, because I've never said your last name out loud until right now. That's so funny. Gosh, Nisha Joshi, and that's NISHAJOSHI. Put that into LinkedIn. You'll find Nisha immediately. Of course, we'll have that in the show notes as well. Nisha, thank you again. This was such a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you too. Thanks so much, Jay.
I've known Nisha for years, and you can sense in that conversation that she's really been through it. She has real life experience, and we gathered so much from that conversation in regards to how to lead people, how to work with teams, how to be collaborative, but also how to make sure you're taking care of yourself too. So I'm going to synthesize this down into our 3 insights and our 3 actionable takeaways. So the first insight, start with lifestyle. What do you want? We can't begin with what we want for the team, what we want for our career growth. We can't start there. Those are secondary things. First, begin what is it that you want for the lifestyle you wish to create, and then those other pieces come into play, because team dynamics will help you to determine how you can delegate things and create that lifestyle for yourself. But first, know what it is that you wish to create, then work on the other pieces. Second insight, align team values. We have to consider that people want to feel safe. And in order for them to feel safe, we need to bring people together and have those conversations. And when you don't, there's a cost. There's a price to that. So she brought up the question, what is the cost if you don't bring your team together? If you keep using the excuse, oh, we don't have the time for this, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a cost to that. And I can tell you that that cost definitely outweighs the amount of time that you would put into aligning your team's values. Third insight, go to the basics. Too often we overcomplicate things, but the basic things like meeting people at a human level, as a leader, not trying to rescue everybody, taking just small actions to make progress, and really remembering that you're dealing with human beings. So knowing what AI is for and other technology, know what it's for, but it's not replacing humanity. So go to the basics. 3 actionable takeaways. Number 1, I really loved the heard, not heard exercise. What is it that we're hearing? Then what is it that is not being heard right now? Inviting the team to talk through this on a regular basis so that the things that are often being silenced are brought to the surface. Second actionable takeaway, make things discussable. Talk about things that you may feel uncomfortable discussing. create that psychologically safe environment. And oftentimes as a leader, you have to lead that. You can't just ask others to do it. First, it starts with you, and then inviting others to reciprocate. And the third, actionable items, asking yourself, what voices are shaping your decisions and what's shaping your silence? Taking inventory of that inner dialogue is so valuable in being able to improve oneself as well as to be a better leader. Join us in our next episode on Friday. I'm going to do something different. Lately, I've been reading all these articles about personal development books and the ones that could change your life. And every time I read those lists, I feel like I've read every book that's on those lists. So I thought to myself, what if I came up with my own top 10 list of books that I can share with you? And we can work through that in 2 episodes, so we have time to discuss each one and talk about kind of the summary of each book as well as why I put it on the list. So we'll start with 10 and go up. And one episode I'll do 10 through 6, and then the week after I'll do 5 through 1. And I'll start this on next Friday's episode, and we'll dive into that together. And hopefully it will invite you to look into one of these books, ones that really resonate. And hopefully it has the same effect on you that it's had on me. So until next time, thank you so much for listening.